Hello, different place and a different time. So, I'm actually trying to find out and working a little bit with the backgrounds. So, that's why I'm currently recording here from this with this beautiful background. Actually, there's a strong reflection in my glasses, which is why I will put them away for the sake of the video. Um, Today is a continuation of the 10 life hacks we can learn from Kundalini Yoga, even if we do not practice yoga. But I've decided to do a little mix up where in the first part of the video, I will talk about number 8, and then all the other parts will be cutted from the other part of the video that I have recorded previously. So, happy to see you again, by the way, and I appreciate you. So, number 8, I would like to talk about a life hack from Kundalini Yoga, even if you do not do yoga in whatever kind of way or form. I want to talk about the third eye. The third eye is the place here in between your eyes. You can also use that, for example, throughout meditation to focus on this point. In spirituality, there are a lot of people who believe that it helps them to calm. There are a lot of things that can be found around the topic of the third eye. However, I want to talk about in a little more factual way about this place right here, this very precious and specific place between your eyes, and how you can, with a few life hacks, use this place behind it, and more concretely, the organ that is behind it in your day-to-day life in order to get a healthier routine. And let's start. So, first of all, let me just look up what that word was in English, because I looked it up previously. The pineal gland. The pineal gland is actually what is that word called in English? I'm sorry. It's actually a gland. Yeah, that's the word for that. It's a gland. Just you can find glands also in the lymphatic system, right? So just this part right here, if you look from the front to your face, it is right here. If you look at it from the side of your brain or of your head, it is actually the place just in the middle, actually, of your brain. So it is not only the third eye, but there's an organ behind that is located in the middle of your brain, which freaked me totally out the first time I've heard it. And in Germany, it is very funny, the name of it, because it is called exactly like this. Why? Because, well, in a short form, in a nutshell, actually, this is from a pine, right? It's not actually a pine, it's a different kind of pine, but you get it's kind of a tree, and the tree loses this. And because the form of that looks very much like the organ behind this, it is called like that. So if you imagine this to be like this, with the smaller part is in front and the bigger part is in the back. And just as you imagine this to be right here, it just goes like back to the middle of your brain. And at this place in the middle of your brain, this pineal gland, I believe it's called, this pineal gland is actually responsible, and now comes the other shocker, for releasing all the hormones in your body, all of them. And therefore, it is pretty powerful. So maybe now you can guess why in spirituality, this point right here is so effective, but we will get to that later. But generally speaking, since there are a lot of nerves coming to that place, and not only nerves, but basically it provides us with hormones. And not only that, it is also the place where is it called melatonin? Melatonin? You know, the chemical substance which is impacted by light and is responsible for our natural sense of tiredness when, for example, the light goes out, like right now. What happened here? The battery's low. So I would just get going a little bit quicker. So the melatonin is responsible for our natural feeling of tiredness. So when the light goes out, we feel tired. When the light comes up, we awaken in a natural way. And the reason for that is the transmission of melatonin, which is also located in this part of the brain, the third eye or the pineal gland. Feel free to do your research. I hope that the message gets through, even if the words might be different in German than in English. You get, I think we still get connected here. So since this place is not only responsible for the melatonin part, but also for hormones, as I said in general, but also based off the spiritual perception of it, it is also responsible for our intuition, which is really interesting because if you think, if doing my research every once in a while on this topic, because every time I find and discover something new about it, I have came to the realization or I've experienced that when we are children, and there are different statistics, but you can basically say the general thing is about once you get until you're 8 years old, basically, your brain has a lot of hormones from that organ, from that third eye. But as we grow older, starting with the 20s, starting to get to be 20 years, approximately, there are different statistics, as I said, different years, but approximately, the transmission of a specific hormone gets reduced drastically. Like you can see, I saw graphs that showed like it goes up, then it stays like up for a long time, like until you're 8, and then it falls drastically. So what does that mean? It actually gets, this point here gets contaminated pretty quickly. And there are different kinds of contamination responsible for that. So one is, for example, the sleep rhythm that we have. Another is there could be found a connection between the emotional feelings that we have. There's a connection with this organ too. So if you feel depressed, for example, you don't have a lot of transmission. If you feel happy, the transmission of the hormones are higher. So your frequency raises too, which is why you can actively use this part here to ensure that it doesn't get contaminated. And of course, there are a lot of things that you can clean that. One is, of course, the food, the clothes, the sleep rhythm, to keep a healthy life balance, all those beautiful things that you would usually do to clean your body. But also your thoughts and the way that we think about ourselves has a connection to it. If you have negative thoughts, it gets contaminated. If you have positive thoughts, if your frequency is high, and I don't mean negative or positive like in a judgy way, but more so if we perceive the world in a specific way, basically what I'm trying to say is that this will reflect back on this part here. And depending whether it's something that is high or low frequential, it impacts us differently, right? So first of all would be to basically keep in track your cleaning, detoxification habits. If you have done that, you can do basically one thing, and now comes the life hack. So all of this context to provide you the life hack. Once it's clean, the cool thing about this point right here and the pineal gland is that it's a muscle. So the more you use it, the better it works, just as all muscles do. And in order to train this muscle, you can just do it right now with me. We can close our eyes and we just focus with our eyes on the third eye. And it basically looks a little bit like if you would look at the tip of your nose, but you would just do it up, right? So maybe in the beginning, it helps you to focus firstly on the tip of your nose, right here, and then slowly go up until you meet right here. And if you do it right, you will notice that it takes effort. It takes effort, and what can happen, and will probably happen, is that your eyelids will start to flicker quite a lot, which is totally normal and is an indication that the muscle is not good trained. Because if you do it on a frequently basis, the way up here would be just as easy as the way to the bottom of your nose, right? Which is pretty much should be easier for you, right? Because we're just more so used to use our eyes within this frame of view than we are using the eyes for this part right here, up there. I don't know if you could see it in my eyes, but like this. So basically, knowing that it is a muscle is great because you can use it. And you don't have to meditate for 15 days and 1,380 hours a day. You can just start to use that muscle on a frequent basis. So whenever, for example, you're waiting in line the next time for something, you can just close your eyes and start to practice to use this muscle. The longer you do it, the easier it will get. And you will also train the nerves of your eyes, because there's this stimulation which in the beginning can be a little bit uncomfortable because it feels like tight. But the more you do it, the muscle of the eye as well, which, fun fact and a short note, did you know that the eye is part of the brain? Crazy, right? I just figured that out the last day. It's actually the part of the brain that we can see. Like mind blowing. Anyways, the more you practice to focus here on this point, the more trained your eyes, the nerves of your eyes will become, and the more trained this right here, the third eye, but more so the piece between or in the middle of your head, of your brain, will get stimulated. So last but not least, for the part 8, the reason why I mentioned the children before, and that it is there are actually studies that show that it raises until you're 8 years and then it just stays on a continuous flow and then it drastically goes down, is because I found it fascinating, because in that same article I've read that this is actually also the reason why children have difficulties. That was the word that they used in the article. But the children therefore have difficulties to differentiate between reality and fantasy. Because since the level of those hormones, of this chemicals basically that are being spread through that organ, because the amount is so high in the body of the child, they are pretty much, they are totally inside that intuition. They're totally inside that fantasy world. And that's why for them it's so easy to believe. It's so easy to imagine this fantasy world, you know? And as adults, of course, we use part of that. We lose part of that. But also we use part of that if we want to, right? Greetings to Mr. Freud at that stage. Anyways, I just thought that it's a great explanation, you know, also to be reminded of how wonderful this fantasy-like world of children is, not only from a feeling perspective, but more so from a biological perspective. We can really know that. And the great thing about it, we can do it ourselves. If we focus on that, if we train that muscle, we can become more intuitive. It will be more, it will also have a lot of different effects. So feel free to do your own research. But since all the hormones are being basically spread out through this point throughout our body, it is responsible not only for the sleep, but also for hunger, for the feeling of lust too. So there is a lot of things happening right there. And if we can make sure that we feel happier, healthier, more aligned, and even have that sparkle of fantasy a little bit more in our day-to-day lives, how great is that if we just do this? Don't you agree? So, since it's already 18 minutes, I believe that I would just post this part of the video and then the rest from the pre-recorded one. I wish you a great time experimenting and practicing and doing your research too. So if you come across a fact that I haven't mentioned right here and you found it cool, feel free to let me know. I would be happy to hear about new stuff. And actually, I've done the research on that for many years, every once in a while, and there's always something new that comes up. So it's just amazing. Like, this is amazing what it does to our body. And actually, just now that I'm thinking about it, touching it can also help for your awareness for this point. I've experienced that in some yoga groups where I was attending, there were people who were losing the focus when they were meditating for a longer time, and they would lose the focus on this point here. It would help them if they touch it in advance, so that you just feel the sensation of this point. And this actually, you can try it out. You can touch it, maybe press it even a little bit, or just do circles around it. And if you then close your eyes and concentrate on it again, the sensation will be a little bit different. Try it out. Just try it out. So that was, I guess, the message for today. I appreciate you. Thank you. Have fun experiencing with it. And see you in the next one. Bye.